Hi everyone, here's the Book Chemist once again. Today I'm reviewing Don II, I was going to say. Don II by Mao DeLillo. One of DeLillo's most famous novels. It's supposed to be from his golden age, between white noise and, say, underworld. It's been ages since my last DeLillo novels, which was, I think, 0K a few years back. And even more since the time when I read DeLillo all the time. I got a bit obsessed with his stuff. Fascinated with the mystery of his fiction and the mystery of his prose, which is often sparse, often cryptic, sometimes nothing much happens, but still you're enchanted by his writing. How does he do that? What is that all about? Mao II reminded me about that. It was a painful experience, and I don't know if I'm the only one or if every DeLillo fan has that feeling, but sometimes the thing was so slow and so self-focused and dealt so extensively with very boring details of the plot or with uninteresting characters, and you were really suffering and thinking like, dear God, let these next 30 pages flow fast, and they don't flow fast. But at the same time it was highly rewarding, so beautiful, and most importantly, so impossibly well written. Let me just read a passage where the main character, say the protagonist of this book, is introduced. He is in his retreat somewhere in the woods, and he is waiting for people to come to his house. He resolved to count to 10. He's looking out the window waiting for them. He resolved to count to 10, and if the lights did not appear, he would go to the desk and turn on the lamp and do some work, going over what he'd written during the day. I'm moving down the paragraph. He counted to 10, and when no lights showed, he began to count to 10 once more, slower now, standing in the dark, making an agreement with himself that this time he would really go to the desk and turn on the lamp if the car did not appear at the top of the hill by the time he reached 10, the mud-spattered compact, and settle down to work, because it was only children who thought they could make things happen by counting. And he went to 10 one more time, and then one more time, and then just stood watching until the headlights finally showed, splashy white, the car dipping off the rim of the hill, and the lights sweeping briefly across the scrub, and strange children at that, the squinters and crappers, the ones who ball up their fists when they cry. Ah! Masterful. This weird stream of, sort of light stream of consciousness that is not really light at all. It only feels like that, but when you stop and reread these passages you realize that they are completely messed up in a very Joycean way. The way 3 different strands of discourse and 3 different trains of thought are intertwined in this paragraph. That's beautiful and brilliant, and at the end of the day, most importantly, it's really why you read DeLillo. There's lots of commentary about contemporary society and about its absurdities in DeLillo's books. There's lots of satire, both subtle and a bit coarser at times. There's lots of philosophical, sociological reflections. Say, Mao II talks a lot about the parallels between the lives of writers and the lives of terrorists, and how terrorists have somehow in some ways taken on the roles that in past ages were reserved to writers, somehow. Still, at the end of the day, what you read DeLillo for is those beautiful sentences, because he just writes like a complete motherfucker, and he's so good. There was an essay published recently by Kevin Power on The Millions about precisely this element of Don DeLillo. The essay is focused through a close reading of a short story by Jonathan Lethem called The King of Sentences, which may or may not have Don DeLillo as the main character. More about this idea of using famous writers as characters in a second. But the essay, even if you haven't read Lethem's short story, I hadn't when I read the essay is brilliant and shows this feature of DeLillo as what many people identify to be his key feature, the idea that he writes such beautiful, impossibly beautiful sentences. And of course there's a danger there, because occasionally the beautiful sentences tend to overshadow and to make things such as plot and characters lose importance. Many people believe that to be the case with DeLillo's later works from the 21st century, stuff such as Cosmopolis, Point Omega, 0K. I don't think that's necessarily the case in all of those works, but saying that those works are sort of very lyrical and maybe do not have that much plot and are very mysterious and beautiful in a poetic way is sort of a truism. As of course is saying that DeLillo writes good sentences. What else is new? What I'm going to say that is hopefully more relevant is that just like, really, like most DeLillo books actually, this has a plot, and it has an interesting plot too, which involves kidnappings, people living in isolation, bizarre brainwashing cults, but at the same time, do not make the mistake of reading the book for the plot. Not because it's not there, there's explosions too in this book, really, seriously, but because it's not it's not what's going to satisfy you at the end of the day when you read Mao II. It's not necessarily going to be that memorable. The explosions are not really given the prominence you would expect them to have. They're usually condensed in a couple of lines, which is bizarre considering that occasionally boring conversations are stretched on for pages and pages. What you read it for is the bizarre people, is the great portrayals of contemporary society, the way DeLillo makes you look at stuff such as skyscrapers or terrorists in the Middle East under a different light, and consider these things anew and make you reflect upon elements of these things in ways you hadn't expected, and not just in a still useful but boring political way, such as you have to think of the implications of all these things, skyscrapers in a city where people are homeless, that's bad. Also in deeper ways, in the ways, you know, these things influence our everyday life. And of course, if I could tell you about all of these things, I wouldn't be filming YouTube reviews, I would be Don DeLillo himself. You have to read these books to get this type of accessible while very deep philosophy at the heart of all these things. I understand I'm making this sound like the most boring shit possible, but it's not what I want to say. Make no mistake, there are some absolutely hilarious moments in here, as fun as the most hilarious bits in White Noise, which I still think it's possibly one of DeLillo's very strongest novels, like top 3. Of course, I'm not alone in thinking this, but still. And the plot is there once more. But it's still going to be cryptic. It's not that long, but it's going to feel like a much longer novel. Some passages are going to be dense. Some characters are going to stay with you forever. The 14-year-old drug dealer, most notably, and possibly also Karen, the brainwashed cultist. At the end of the day, if you are disciplined enough to survive through those moments when you feel like, oh my god, I'd rather be cleaning the shelves than reading this passage about the guy worrying about his pills. If you are resistant enough to go through those passages, you are going to have a great time. Some things are supposed to be like this. Some types of food are supposed to be acquired taste. Some board games are supposed to have 50-page manuals. Some books are supposed to be boring at times. It's the fun of it. One last thing I'd like to mention is that this novel, I haven't looked up this novel at all on stuff such as Wikipedia, Google, and etc. I get the feeling that one of the characters in this novel may be Thomas Pynchon. The protagonist is a famously reclusive writer who was in the Navy. Maybe this one was in the Army. Who knows? There are some clear parallels between the two. I don't know if it was DeLillo's intention, if he had anyone else in mind. I'm going to talk a bit more about this, about the idea of using existing writers as characters in your book, when in a few days, a week, whatever, I'm going to review Asymmetry by Lisa Halliday. Recently came out. Lots of people talked about this novel because the co-protagonist in it is supposed to be based on Philip Roth. My take very quickly is that I don't necessarily care. I do not care at all if these things are taken from personal experience of the authors. I do not necessarily care. I do feel that the mystery of, oh, is this guy that one other writer I like, that adds to the mystery of the whole thing, but I wouldn't sweat over it. And yeah, by no means read Mao II because someone tells you it's about Pynchon. Lots of people, for instance, read The Marriage Plot convinced that one of the characters in there, one of the protagonists, is David Foster Wallace. I think that's not the right way to approach the novel. Eugenides, I think, even disproved that claim, even though it looks a lot like one of the characters resembles David Foster Wallace, and it's fun. Absolute fun to read the novel pretending that there's a parallel and there's a reference there, if it makes sense. What did you think about Mao II? Is it one of DeLillo's best works? Is it not really up there with the others? DeLillo has such a wide, such a has had such a long career that everyone has different favorites, and that's one of the great things about him, and one of the things that makes discuss him so great and fun. Let me know in the comments below, and thank you as always for watching. In a second I'll put links on the screen to other reviews or other videos I've filmed, and if you like this one, consider subscribing, that will be awesome. I will see you in our next video. Bye guys.